Sir.
What's your greatest screw up at work?
Oh, wow. I don't know. That's a good question.
Right into it.
Right into it?
Right into it. We didn't give you any warning.
My greatest...
Or one of your...
I'd try to help you.
One of your
trying
greatest.
to come up with my own.
From the Time Life Greatest Hits collection of screw-ups.
Well, I mean, we did the
You did your mulligans.
right. I was going to say we did the mulligans, which is kind of along the same lines of what's your greatest screw up. I mean, and I actually did too because I did a leadership one too.
Right.
And that's probably more often what you're going to do is I would say I screw up probably more dealing in personnel interactions than I do anything else, misreading the situation or.
Why do you think that is?
Because I'm an arrogant ass. I don't know.
No, I mean
It's a good place to start.
But I mean, at this point, let's say you're not doing it on fires because you're tactically proficient. How long have you been a battalion chief?
It was about to be 9 years.
So you should be tactically proficient at being a battalion chief, right? So
I should be phoning it in at this time.
Why do you keep having the screw ups with people then?
People are different. People, you got distractions, and I just think that there's so much variety in people and the way that they're going to approach you. And then plus, everybody's got their own personality and things that they're hot buttons. Probably my biggest screw up is when I let somebody push my buttons, and then I outwardly let them see that they've made me mad. That's, to me, it's not very professional thing to do, but I still have quite a temper, and I've done much better, than I was as a captain or whatever. But I'd say as a battalion chief, I do a pretty good job at it. But every once in a while, it'll still occur, and then he's laughing at me, and
rears his little ugly head.
Yeah. And at the time, I'm so hot about it. It's almost like feeding the fire of it.
Right.
You're in the whole win or die kind of thing, and it's later that I'm sitting there and I'm almost embarrassed by it.
A little reflection.
That person just totally pushed my buttons about what it is. And then it's me reflecting on like, how am I going to either repair that or not let it happen again, or
Right.
So I'd say that's probably my biggest screw ups is to let that happen as a battalion chief.
Do you go back to them?
Yeah, I have to. I mean, for the most part. I mean, especially if it's one of my employees.
But do you go back to him and talk about that conversation and where you screwed up? And is that part of the process?
I think it depends on the individual. If I went back and would talk to them about it and thought that would like empower them and make it worse, I probably would not.
Right.
Right. But I'm very quick to say that I'm a human. He used human earlier. I thought that was funny, by the way. That I'm a person.
Just trying to distinguish between animals and humans. I don't want to confuse people.
Instead of saying people, he said humans, and I just caught that funny. Anyway,
You've got 2 legs and not 4. And
that's right. But I'm going to make mistakes, and I think that's something that happens a lot, especially officers and really, really new officers. People think, oh, you took the test, you're going to have all the answers, and you typically don't have all the answers. There's a grace period that they need to have where they got to mold into the role. But even me as having done this for 9 years, or this position for 9 years, I'm still learning. I'm not going to be.
What's that grace period? I think we've talked about this before.
I don't even think there is a grace period.
No, we've talked about this. Well, not necessarily a grace period, but that period before you really feel like you've got your feet under you in a new position.
For battalion chief, I think it was about a year for me.
I think Shane and I have talked about this while we were hiking. And I
Malcolm Gladwell said 5,000 hours.
Yeah. Well, no, that's to become
Proficient.
Expert. I think it's about
Was it 10?
Yeah, it is 10.
I mean, you could do something
Reason I
wrong
thought it
for
was
5,000 hours and just perfect how to do it wrong.
It should probably show
I think it's
up
a
if
year
you're
and a
doing it
half.
wrong, though.
I think it's a year
Yeah,
and a half.
it was an easy year and a half, 2 years for me.
Before I really start to feel like I know what I'm doing.
Get your feet under you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a long
I
time.
think
It is a
changes
long
to a
time. A lot
position,
longer than
though.
people
Long
realize.
time. Yeah. Now, one of my screw ups, one of my really good ones was we had a
Survived that.
Yeah, I'm letting you out.
Yeah, thank you.
Throwing you a life preserver. We had 2 individuals at our station who had both the same certification, and we were told we had to get rid of one of them. because they needed to move that person to another station. And the one that was deemed the one that was going to move apparently had gotten a get out of jail free card from the number 2 person in the department at some point that none of us knew about. And she was not happy when she was told that she was going to be transferred to another station. And she basically said, I've got a letter from this individual that says you can't transfer me for 2 years. And we really weren't, they weren't going to honor that letter because those people were no longer in position. But she got really, really upset, and I was trying to be the most supportive emotionally that I could be, which I'm not typically. So I was,
oh, really?
Yeah. So I was.
I don't know why you didn't think that was going to go right.
I was really trying to listen, and we ended up at that station. Everything that was done of purpose was always done on the deck, right off of the kitchen. I was out on the deck talking to her, trying to get her. I mean, she was upset. And for about 2 hours, she was just upset. I could not get her to calm down. She wasn't angry at me, but she was very angry about the situation. And I was the captain. I was one of 2 captains. And this started about 10 o'clock, and it gets to be about midnight, and I'm just not making any headway. And the other captain at the station, who was a much more senior captain, he typically went to bed about 9:30 at night. But he was still up, and I didn't know it. And he was in the day room kind of monitoring what was going on the deck. And right after 12 o'clock, which was way past his bedtime, he opened up the door to the deck from the kitchen, stood in the doorway, and he said to the individual, so-and-so, you're going to station blank. That's it. End of story. And he closed the door, and he walked back in, which was totally not his way. That's more my way. I was trying to be like he is, I was trying to listen and do he comes out and does that. And as soon as he did it, the tears stopped. She was immediately okay with the transfer, and it was done. And I had spent 2 hours trying to be that person that I'm not normally. And in the end, he came out and did exactly what she needed, which was just get over it. And I don't know. I don't know how he recognized that was what she needed.
So was that your beginning of Moneyball in it? Maybe not even realize it. So going forward, did you continue to try to touchy-feely?
I think I was always the Moneyball approach. I think I don't think anybody would ever accuse me of being too, what's the word? Understanding or
Empathetic.
Empathy. Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what it is. I always get accused of lacking empathy and sympathy. But yeah. So and to this day, I still don't know what he did. Now,
Well, maybe because it was out of character is what shocked her into taking it.
It might have been. And then somebody else said, "Well, you did spend 2 hours softening her up." It might have
just
been
massaging your ego.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe.
So that
Bell says, "Yeah. You screwed that up good."
So that was your script.
yeah. So that's what I'm
Well,
wondering.
no,
So,
it's not the greatest script, but it does. I mean, it does stay with me, and this was 15 years ago. I mean, I still think about that because I think about how much I misread her. It's kind of like what you're talking about, misreading those interactions with people. I thought I was doing exactly what I needed to be doing to get her through this, and it was totally the wrong thing.
So does this reinforce you to say, you know what?
No.
I'm going to be more direct from now on.
No, I think it reinforced the fact that I can't be something that I'm not. And then it also reinforced the fact that I can't read people. I'm just not good at it. So. Babel is furiously scribbling in his notebook.
I don't know if that's true either.
I don't either. That's why I think we all said,
Oh. Well, see, there I've
screwed up again.
misevaluated y'all.
Okay, maybe it is true.
Babel, what do you got?
Because it's such short notice.
Oh.
The only thing I can think of is I made part of it I'm good with, the other part I'm not, which basically I had a problem with leadership, and I decided to write it down and give this leader a letter stating my
Disapproval.
disapproval of his leadership.
Wait. You mean like a letter like, here are all the things that you're doing wrong?
Not like that. It was
That
professional.
sounds exactly like that. The way he said, yeah, it seems exactly like that.
I still have it.
Oh, you didn't
So
give it to him?
yeah, no, he got it.
I thought you might have.
Is it framed on your wall?
Didn't press send.
No, I just kept the. I keep everything I write, so I can go back and reflect was I in the right or the wrong. And basically, it's something that should have been confronted, not necessarily written. And the reason it's one of the worst things is because it's just, at that time, it just seemed like such the right thing to do. It's like you just write a letter, state some of your concerns. I had already tried some verbal stuff. Hey, I want to get moved. There were just some issues there. And now I look at it and think that was just a dumb shit thing to do. I should not have
Why
done
was
that.
it dumb?
Because when
You kind of said it, so it should have been verbal. So you don't disagree with what you said, just
No.
that you shouldn't have written it down.
that's correct, because you're formalizing something by writing it, and people should have the opportunity. First of all, the opportunity should have been present for that person to grow within their role. They were still reasonably new. I was just full of piss and vinegar, and we just had conflict. When you write something down, you're formalizing it. This could have been easily disputed just face to face. I don't know why I thought it was so important.
You
to
said
write
it was
down.
about you wanted to be transferred.
Well, that part I verbalized several times. So I definitely verbalized my discontent of being present.
So
but
why would writing a letter? I mean, obviously you chose to take it to the next step. So,
well, no, see, that's not what my intent was.
What was your intent?
Just to write it down. Sometimes I can put down what my thoughts are in writing better than I can verbalize them, and you're also lacking opposition when you write them down. You know, one of the things with writing things down is, and this is atrocious today, and we've talked about this a million times, how you grow through time, and you got to give us that time for growth. We do stupid stuff is
Right.
when you write a letters, it could be quite cowardly because that person doesn't have an opportunity to defend themselves.
Oh, I
so
agree.
sometimes that's an out is to go, well, I'm
Right.
going to write this down. That way you have to read it, absorb it, and just fume over it. And you can't say nothing to me. So I think I'm in the right the whole entire time because there is no rebuttal till a rebuttal shows up.
Well, that's
so
commentary on all Facebook posts and Twitter
Correct.
posts, and everything's a one-way.
Cabell, I'm seeing you in a whole new negative light today.
Throw it out there.
well, that was
we all do it. We all
that was
do
a long time ago. And
That's okay. I'm going to still hold you accountable for it
That's
today.
good. That's all good. What I wrote was honest. It was true. It definitely did not need to be written. That just formalizes.
So wait,
it
what
to
you
a level
wrote was about you?
no. It was hell no. I was doing everything right. It was them that was screwing everything.
Well, then
up.
how do you know it was all true?
Well, no, it was my perspective as to how
Right.
things were going. Some
Right.
of the steps that I took to try to, hey, I understand that I wanted to move somewhere. Nonetheless, I shouldn't have formalized it like
Right.
that. And young, immature, it was not to bring it to another level. I didn't understand the fire service. So if you're listening to this, understand that if you write something down, you are formalizing that complaint or that concern or whatever it is that you put down. That wasn't my intention. My intention was I was off next shift. That person wasn't here. I'm going to let you know how you're screwing things up and I don't want to be here or whatever. It was professional.
So what did you
but
expect
this was-
out of it? What kind of response did you expect? Did you expect a letter back?
No, I didn't even think it through that much.
Okay.
I mean, did it start out with I'm just saying this to get off my chest. I'm not looking for a response. I don't think that would
No,
work if I
so
received a
my
letter like that.
if I had to
You're going to
get-
get a response.
No, see, I didn't expect that. What my thought was at the time, when we talk, he's not listening. So I'm going to force him to listen because I'm going to put this in writing. I didn't think if you put it in writing, it's going to be formalized. It has to be taken up to another
So
level. or a
what you keep saying
complaint.
formalized. So what happened when you wrote the letter?
Yeah, did it move on up?
Oh, yeah, it moved on up.
How did it move on?
chain?
up?
And then I moved down, which meant downstairs is where headquarters and the Chiefs are. So I had to go down. It wasn't a bad thing because it was as somebody stated, it was right on the line. In other words, it was professionally written. It wasn't nothing bad, blasphemous, and disrespectful.
Untrue.
Or, well, you can't substantiate.
It's a matter of perception.
Yeah, it's a matter of perception. But that's just not the right thing to do. Right. There is definitely a time to formalize a complaint or a concern. This was not time for that. So then the repercussions are me being downstairs and, God, I was infuriated by the response that I got. And then you fast forward over 10 years now. I think it's been over 10 years now. And I go, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. Now,
were your complaints in the right heart?
No.
But then when they were misguided?
No.
So they were in the wrong.
No, it was just
no matter what.
Bitching. It was just my perception of this
So
leadership.
the reason I was going with that is because, again, when we go back to that, if somebody had had a courageous conversation with you to say, listen, I hear what you just said, but let me explain to you why that will work or that will not work.
You're right. But even with that, for those that are listening, this did not need a letter to be written to the individual, because once you write it, it is written. So I should have had a courageous conversation, or I should have just dropped it and said whatever. It was just my perception, my bitch, my complaint.
I agree. There's a little more kapow when you put it on paper.
There's definitely more
what somebody
kapow.
just said.
And I don't know what the end result of it is. I don't know that the end result, it ends up in a file or whatever. But when I got called down, I could tell you that there was no discussion with me. It was a discussion at me. That part I thought was mishandled big time. And if I was going to put a written thing, would have been on how that person, not the one that I wrote it against, but the chief that handled it, that person mishandled it with me big time. But the original, I really didn't have, I wouldn't say I had any malice or malicious intent. It was just like, you know what? I'm going to write it. Then you're going to read it, and you're going to have to stew over it, because you obviously ain't listening to me when I'm sitting in front of you. But I didn't understand the implications of a written word at that time in the fire department.
How long ago was this?
Over 10 years.
All right.
I think.
You now receive the same kind of letter from one of your firefighters who was...
Can I pick the firefighter for you?
No.
How do you today... Because I was going to ask this question before you even said it, but you said that they handled it wrong. Mm-hmm. How would you handle receiving a letter that right
I
now?
hope not to be put in that predicament, because the problem is, yeah, I know.
Do what?
Well, just put you in that
He's
predicament.
asking, hypothetically, if it would happen. So,
well, my point
is the letter? You talking about somebody writes a letter against me or against somebody else?
Same situation. Whoever you sent, you're the person that somebody sent this to.
You something that you won't listen to them. They've got all these great ideas.
Is the lesson from your experience that you realize that person in the same situation doesn't realize the level that they've put by putting it on paper, and that they were just blowing up? Do you take what you learned from that experience and apply it down, or do you end up reacting? So I think I know the answer.
Well, I'm going to give you a twofold honest question. If it's written towards me, then the first thing I'm going to do is get pissed off about it. Somebody wrote a formal letter against me saying that whatever. I mean, the human side of me. So then do you
understand how the other person reacted?
100%. Okay. So now if I'm having to deal with it, then this is where things change. Because of my ignorance at the time, I actually thought, this is going to get through to you now, and you're going to feel horrible because you got a great employee that's saying something to you. Whether that was my mindset. So now the way I would look at it and the way I would handle it would be, first of all, depending on the person, the position, and understanding and all that is, do you understand the implications of writing this? Is this a formal complaint, or are you just trying to... Because
get my attention.
Right. It does change things when you write it like that. So would I handle it different? I'd have a little bit more understanding, but I don't think the sting of the initial sting of getting upset will go away. So for this, again, in my immaturity, I didn't think I'm writing a formal blah, blah, blah. It was just like, they're going to have to stew over this and all that. So I could have handled it better, but I was also young. And for those out there, I don't know how you train or you teach or you mentor people to understand something like that. It's not we sit down. I mean, hell, we're doing it right now, I guess. But you go, just be cautious of what you do. I actually wrote something a while back, and it was called The Power of Words. And it had some of that in it, which is, I can make a comment, nothing. If it's recorded or written, it's almost infinite. So you have to be real cautious. And I don't know how you prep people for that, but what I would say is there is conversations that need to be taken in person, and an email or a document just escalate things to a level that a lot of us don't expect. I was not expecting it.
I don't completely disagree, but I'm going to say that an in-person conversation can be just as damaging as a written one.
Sure, yeah.
And I think what I would say that you said that I wholeheartedly agree with, and that I was not smart enough to do this most of my career, is you said, how do you mentor someone like that? The best litmus test for what you've written is to give it to somebody you trust before you send it and say,
how do you feel about it?
I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm about to send this.
So let me do a little bit more mentoring and education, and then we could move on. I did do that.
No, let's stay on you. This is pretty good.
No. So I did do that. But you know who I gave it to? Somebody that agreed with me. Somebody that I knew was going to agree with me.
Yeah.
So I did give it to somebody and say, this is exactly what was said. If I gave this to you, how would you feel? What do you think about it? And I just left it there. And when they come back, they were in support of it. They're like, if that's how you feel about it.
You were taking all the risk.
Exactly. Exactly. I didn't tense man the thing.
Awesome.
It was like, who can I give
Would
it
you
to?
do that again?
I don't think this is strong enough.
Give it to the same person.
I think you're
I
kind
wouldn't-
of
I wouldn't
belaboring
have.
your point. I think you need to be more direct.
I need to be more exclamation points.
Yeah,
on this.
more caps, all caps, and 4-letter words.
First of all, I'd be way more cautious, as it'd have to be pretty significant for me to document something, because if I documented it, I would look at it
you
as
were documenting
formal.
the truth. Why
No.
should you be cautious about documenting the truth?
You
It-
can't
no.
handle the truth.
It
No,
was-
but I mean, seriously,
I
some people are
documented.
going to say that. If
No.
it's the truth, then you shouldn't have any problem
All
with
right.
it.
So what I would argue with that is you could do whatever you want. My advice to you would be don't document your perception. Truth can be validated. Nothing that I said can be validated because it was my perception. Right. Now, if there's immoral, illegal, something that you can validate, that's different. But my discontent for an individual is 100% subjective. So that's just not smart on my part to do. If I had to do it all over again, I have an accountability system now that I'd hand it to go, hey, what do you feel about this? And I know I'm going to get truth. I know that I'm not giving it to somebody who's just there to agree with me. And that point, I
You'll
didn't
get
have that
truth in your
accountability
best
system.
interest taken
In
into
my
consideration.
best interest, where somebody's going to look at it and tell me if they feel
Yeah, tell them.
right.
So
should do it.
In that conversation, he kind of alluded to it. So if you would have gotten that letter yourself, somebody wrote that letter to you, you still would have been okay with it?
No, I would have thought it was disrespectful as hell.
Exactly. So you don't even have to give it to somebody else. If you just put yourself in the role of, if this person wrote this letter to me, how would I take it?
Yeah.
And I've done that before, where I was going to go in and have a conversation and plead my case to somebody. And I thought about it for a second. I was like, what if one of my subordinates did that? I'd be pissed. And I totally changed my tactic. That's how I went and had that conversation.
So two things with that, and we've talked about this. Wait till your emotion is not at full peak to write it.
True.
If you wrote it, rip it up and see if you're willing to write it again. And with that being said, I did not have the maturity to see how it would affect me. And I'll tell you what I've done. It's been over 10 years. I've read that letter probably about 6 or 7 times. For a few years, I'd read it every year. Wow. And I validated it every year that it was the right thing to do. It wasn't until recent years that I thought that was just stupid.
Because your position changed.
Look at
My
that
position
growth.
changed, my perspective changed. But for years, I'd read it and I'd be like, that son of a bitch deserved this letter. It was justified.
I might send it to him again
That's right.
I still
in
have it.
case you didn't see it
case
the
you
first
forgot.
time.
I'm gonna spell it better and use a little bit better wording in it. No, but yeah, for
underline some
God,
stuff.
for at least 5 years, I thought it was a hell of a letter, and I was 100% validated in sending it. And then all of a sudden, positions change, maturity changes, life experiences, and I look at it and I go, "You're a dipshit for doing that. You could have handled that much
I just
better."
recently
All right,
had
Shane.
a conversation about going on this line right here and it boiled it down to this: just because it's true doesn't mean it needs to be said.
Yeah.
You know, that's just. I mean, truth has nothing to do whether or not it is talked about or not.
All right. So what's
Plain and
yours?
I one of the things I noticed while we were sitting here talking about it is everybody's screw up, including mine, is personal related. You know what I mean? And again, you know, it's tough to kind of come up with these screw ups, but I did screw up as a new battalion chief, bringing something that was said or something that was going to be intended to be done. And I don't want to go into the details of it, but I totally took it the wrong way. Like, I didn't receive it the way they said. You know, this thing came to me that this was going to happen. I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. I could be, you know, I'm thinking I'm doing good for the department. I'm looking out how this could look in the department's eyes and how, you know, I'm protecting the department and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't take into consideration of how this was going to make the employee feel when I tell them.
Was it written by Pabell?
No. And so again, you know, when I said, I don't think we're going to do that. I don't think that's a good idea because of blah, blah, blah. They immediately turned it on as a personal attack on their character.
Right.
Why would you assume that I would do something? Like, that's your default, was that I'm a bad person and I would do that. They didn't see it where I was trying to think of it from the department perspective. And again, although I still ultimately think I did the right thing, I would have totally explained better as to why I think I'm doing the right thing.
Right.
I think it would have been a much more, again, I keep saying this, I think we need to have these courageous conversations. You need to be able to sit down and say, listen, I appreciate you taking the time. I want you to understand what that sounds like, what you just said, think about it, this perspective. I want to hear what your perspective is, but we usually don't do that.
Do you think that
especially
sometimes
when we're brand new at it?
You think that sometimes that happens because you're just 100% guarded at that point, that anything that you say can be used against you? So it's like, I don't even want to have a conversation where...
I mean, maybe, but I think, yeah. Well, let me take it twofold, because Hatch and I were talking about this. I think in a lot of ways, when an individual gets promoted, they think that we think you should know everything. Right? Mm-hmm. You should know all the answers. You should know all the pitfalls. So therefore, when you realize when you get promoted, you really don't. They didn't give you a little magic book that was hidden under the desk.
These are all the secrets.
That did not happen. And now all of a sudden, you have someone who has challenged you, and you don't know what to do. You don't know how to navigate it, so you just navigate it in what you think is the best way. And in reality, many times it's not the best way.
You just poured gasoline on it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I did. Whew.
So I kind of like this because of the fact that when we talk about mentoring, helping people and all that, very rarely is this stuff out. It's usually going to be something that I screwed up on a fire scene or something like that.
Which I did have one of those too.
No, I've had plenty of those.
Back on that good one.
But to say
July
stuff,
13th, we just had our anniversary.
No, I wasn't thinking about that one. I was thinking about the time I realized that you should bring more crews on when it's this hot. You should maybe call for a second alarm. When I looked and I stopped and I looked across the fireground, legitimately stopped and looked across the fireground, and there were piles of firefighters just nearly dying. I mean, they weren't, but it was
hot.
It was hot, and they were dying. They could not, and I was just throwing firefighters at, yeah, go again. Oh, it was horrible.
All right, so back to the letter writing. I think there's it's been told to me by people above me at different levels in my career, when somebody wrote a letter that I had passed through, which maybe I shouldn't have passed it through, but my position on that is I'm not going to make you rewrite your letter.
That's a tough one.
And, somebody above you hands the letter back and says, make them rewrite this. And no, I'm not going to do it. Now, what I always will do or would do at the time as a station officer specifically was when somebody gave me a letter, I would read it and then I'd bring them in and I'd say, I want to make sure that you understand. I'm not going to tell you to rewrite your letter. I'm not going to tell you to change a single word, but I want you to understand how I am interpreting what you wrote. And when you go through it like that with them, and you at the end you say, if you're okay with how I interpreted it,
exact same thing before.
yeah, then we'll send your letter up. But I don't want you to send something that you don't intend, or that this sentence really comes off this way. And as long as you're okay with it, I'll sign it and I'll pass it up and I'll stand by you, that this is your letter and this is your opinion and blah, blah, blah.
If somebody
but I'm not
gives
going to
it-
make you rewrite a letter.
we got officers that just go,
Yeah, no.
that's what you want to say.
If somebody gives it to me to pre-read it, hey man, what do you think about this?
No, he's talking about it's just in the going up the chain. And at one point, the person in the chain reads it and says, do you understand the impact that this is going to have? And I did the same thing. I had a guy who copied and pasted a Georgia law and then highlighted it.
Oh, geez.
And I was like, do you understand what that's telling them? One, that they don't understand it, and two, that they're not smart enough to realize that this is a law.
So once they write it, this will help me out. I haven't encountered it yet, nor do I hope to, but at the point that they wrote it, is there any concern from your side that you're, I don't want to use the word coerce, that you may get put in there where once that document's written and handed over, it's done. It's filed.
No.
So,
I'm on the same board with Bill. I'm not trying to tell them to change it. I don't want them to change it. I'm trying to explain this is how this is going to be perceived. Is that your intention? If they say yes, go with it.
Well, that's fantastic because that little lesson
But
right there.
I will say, however, once that hits my spot,
No. It depends on
That's
where.
done.
You
it's
are,
done.
Yeah, well,
you
you're
are
a different level.
very
that's what I'm saying.
high
It
up.
needs to happen at the
Company
captain,
officer to
Yeah,
battalion.
I'm
chief.
way down the ladder. I mean, way
that
down
far
the ladder
down.
from you.
But that same process can be employed like we were talking about, where you give it to somebody you trust to say, how does this come off? Well, is your intent that you want to say this? Yes, it is. Then I think you said it very effectively.
And when you say somebody you trust, not
Maybe
somebody that's going to
the
agree with
training
you.
piece is that needs to happen is because we are an organization, and I imagine you guys are too, where you do put a lot of things on paper. Explain why you did this.
Right. So that's okay.
Maybe
so
we need
there's
to put a little more training
And
into that.
I used to, and I actually teach at least at some points I do. I don't know that I've been asked to do it lately, but because I'm sure most people that receive it don't think it's that important. But there was a little 30-minute lecture thing that I do on how to write a letter, because I was world famous for writing 8-page letters.
And
because
text.
I was going to say.
No, you have no idea.
It had to happen.
You have no idea.
Do you write them out on your computer first and then text them to
the text?
Yeah.
No.
You do that on your phone?
That's just thumbs, man.
Oh my God.
All right.
I
Anyway,
was giving you the benefit of the doubt.
I wrote a letter. I was especially pissed off because
You ought to see him do it on his computer and text. though.
the county doctor, and I don't want to go down too far down this road, but the county doctor in my annual health assessment said that I had alcoholic hepatitis, and he wrote that in my file.
Holy
Now-
smokes.
Yeah. So now the fact that I've never had a drink of alcohol in my life caused me a little bit of problem here. Not only was he wrong about the hepatitis, I had some liver enzymes or something that came back on a test. He took the step, and I went and actually consulted 2 other doctors, and I was like, would you ever write this on somebody's chart? And they're like, no, that's malpractice. I mean, the doctor refused to take it out of my my file because I went and met with him. And then my father-in-law is a lawyer, and I said, the fact that it says I have alcoholic hepatitis in my file, if I'm in an accident later, can they get that file and say that I'm an alcoholic? And he said, yeah, technically they'll be able to get to it. So all of that, I thought I needed to write this 8-page monster letter, and I still have that letter. But I mean, I was famous for writing these long letters. So part of that class that I teach now is letters no more than a page. If you get to where you've written more than a page, it really needs to be something that has to get more than a page. Because
Well, I feel better about myself. Mine was only a page long.
well, then you're
Totally
doing good.
wrong,
Now,
but 1 page.
another rule:
No indentions, no.
narrow margins.
Yeah, I was gonna say narrow margins, no header.
No spacing.
The other rule that I kind of have for it is that the first sentence of your letter should very clearly state this is what the letter's about. And if they only read the first sentence, then they should come away from that first sentence with everything that letter's about.
I got a great idea.
What's that?
How about you draft up not because you got plenty of time, draft up a little bit of what that looks like as an example. Then I'm going to take mine and I'm going to redact it. And we're going to put up, do this, don't do this.
That's a horrible idea.
No, but I mean,
Could be the voice of reason here.
So if it's, if you're saying, trying to think of
No, I get what you're saying. You want to capture that.
I am writing this letter in response to your request for a letter on my involvement in the accident with truck 2 on this date. And that, very clear, or if it's even something more, if it's something that you did specifically, like, that you were late to work that morning, I am writing this letter
Response
to acknowledge that I was late on this day, blah, blah, blah. So
I practice that with, you'll often get, hey, can you write me a letter of recommendation? And you always start out with,
yeah,
I am recommending blank. Then you can go on.
Yeah,
but
if
that
they
initial,
never read the rest of it, then, and then at the end, you always wrap it up again with that same idea so that you come back to it again. I am recommending this person.
Right.
But it needs to be very clear cut. It needs to be very, very, never. I used to, the sins that I had when I wrote letters. I would always include a word that you'd have to look up, that I had to look up, and I thought it was like some kind of,
Sign of excellence or intelligence.
yeah, like I was, haha, here's how smart I am. You don't know what this, and I had to look the stupid word up.
And that's exactly what the sender says.
Yeah,
I mean, the receiver.
Exactly. And it's so stupid.
Pisses them off.
Yeah, as a general rule,
Why
aren't you
would-
supposed to write at a 6th grade level?
Well, but if the goal of my letter is to convey my
Intelligence.
thought or my idea to you, why would I put in words
That you don't even
that
know.
you're not going to understand?
Well, that's not too
And-
hard with me. You
Well,
damn
no,
near
but I
write
mean,
anything and I
that's-
can.
You're at cross purposes if you're doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
The whole point is that and let's say it's not a bad thing. Let's say I have an idea. I think we should be running, this truck this way, as opposed to how we're currently running it. You definitely want that to succeed. So why would you do anything to your letter to stand in the way of that?
And complicate it.
So
That's a good point.
another thing that I've got, another rule that I've got is if you're let's say that truck, I want the truck to run this way. I think it should run this way. Here's my idea. And you've got reasons why that's a good thing. Never include more than 3 reasons. Never include more than 3. Because if you include more than 3, and this is my personal opinion, if you include more than 3, none of the first 3 are that good. Right? I mean, if you need 7 reasons why something's a good idea, you've got 7 shitty reasons.
Combine some of them.
Exactly.
I feel like these are 7 really good reasons.
If you've got 7,
I couldn't.
if you've got 7
prioritize.
great ones, then you should only have to pick 3 to get your point across. They shouldn't have to read to all 7. It becomes such an exercise in
Redundant.
here are all the reasons why we should be doing this, and you haven't seen any of them.
And reason 37.
Yeah, So I mean, there's just all those things that I only learned this by doing it wrong for so many years. But as somebody who receives letters and as somebody who writes a lot of letters now, if you're going to write a letter for your department, keep it to 1 page. Be clear, concise. Don't use big words, that nobody's going to understand. You're not trying to prove how smart you are. Don't quote people, and if you're offering an apology,
Apologize.
Apologize. Don't give all the reasons why you did it. If you were late, say I was late. Here's why I was late. Not the the rationale or the reason, all the good reasons you've got for being late. I was late because I overslept. Period. Here's what I've done to make sure that it won't ever happen again. Period. I'm sorry. Period.
All right, use that one in the loop, by the way. That one came out.
What's
good. I'm sorry. That's going to be our loop.
I'm sorry.
But I do have
I'm
Bill's
sorry.
rules for letter writing. Rule number 1. First sentence should explain what or why.
I actually have a class already if you're thinking about building something.
No, I'm just trying to revisit what
It's
you
only a
said.
30-minute class.
Rule number 2, keep it to 1 page.
Yep, 1 page.
Rule number 3, never use more than 3 responses to support your point. And then just as some side note, use clean and understandable words. Clean, document, understandable
Well, it's
words.
about knowing your audience. You should
Yeah.
never write a letter that the audience is not going to understand. So,
And if you're apologizing, just apologize.
well, so that's a big one.
You know that is because I haven't written an apology letter. Probably should have, but I haven't. But if
Not
I
too late.
Are you bragging?
but no, but if I do, I think
You've
that
never done anything wrong?
no, I have. I've just been too prideful to write an apology letter.
So, but you've never been you've never
No,
had,
I just haven't.
that's not a part of the process in the departments that you're in, that you have to write a letter explaining what happened?
I don't want this to come out wrong. I've never had an issue where I had to
Most
write an
of my
apology
apologies
letter.
in person.
Yeah,
It doesn't necessarily have to
screwed
be an
that up.
apology. Like you said,
No,
like
but
you're
I mean,
explaining something
yeah.
that's happened.
well, even
You had an accident and you had to write a letter. I'm sorry this happened. I mean,
Well, like
Right.
I totaled a battalion car 2 years ago, and the first sentence of that was, I wrecked this car,
so I haven't had to
rear-ended
write that.
other people.
It,
There were plenty of reasons why
it wasn't
happened.
formal, but
Okay.
what I would say is, I'm going back to I didn't have to write it, but I did have to explain it.
Right.
And just like you explained it, I would say, yes, I did that, but, and then I'm going to state you 7 reasons why I did screw that up, but
But here's why.
it was dark out. So with what you're saying, me taking into account would be, hey, if I'm going to be writing a letter of apology just throw it out there and go, I wrecked a fire truck.
right.
Almost innately something in me, I'm talking for myself personally, is going to want to, but just keep this in mind, some justifiable cause as to why this happened. Not
If
that it's
you're
not
explaining-
But
applicable.
there's a
If
part in
you're-
I'm thinking about our form where you do write 2 different letters in some ways, because if there are extenuating circumstances that need to be put on paper that are legit,
Absolutely.
And then
But-
what you're going to
but
do to
those are-
avoid this in the future.
Those are details that are provided that are not provided to circumvent you taking responsibility.
Right.
Those are details that I'm providing to show you
Here's
how I got
here.
to where
Right.
I am accepting responsibility for this. That's where that's if I
I'm
include those
accepting
details.
responsibility. However,
I mean, in my letter on the car, I said I looked down at the radio, the department radio, not the music radio. I looked down at the radio to turn the volume up to hear radio traffic, and when I looked up, all the cars in front of me were stopped. That tells you what happened, but it takes nothing away from the fact that I rear-ended another car. It was totally me. I looked away.
Yeah, like
I take responsibility.
the highest posted speed limit is 70. Why would you make my car go 120? Why would you put that on there?
Yeah. No, that's
it's your fault.
you made it go that
your
fast.
fault.
Can't you,
gave
guys
me the
govern this thing?
opportunity.
Yeah, can't you govern this thing to just stay at 70 max?
Well, and we had
blasphemy.
somebody wreck a truck years ago, and they put it on that the department had not trained them to drive that truck, even though they had been driving the truck for a year at
Right.
least. But in their letter, I wrecked the truck because you didn't properly train me to drive it, which is ludicrous.
If you're looking for leniency, that is not the way to get it.
No. But I also think that some people in the upper echelons of departments, when they get a short letter, view it as though you didn't take it seriously, and that's not the case. I could write you a 3-sentence letter about why I screwed up, and you really shouldn't want any more. Here's what I did. I'm sorry about it, and here's what I've done to make sure it won't ever happen again.
See, I think that you need to, if you're going to write
Yeah, and I can see where you could be like that. They just blah.
right.
That.
Yeah.
I'd say if you write an apology letter or something like that, that it should be, here's what I did. I would include, here's what I'm going to do to try to prevent this from happening again.
Exactly.
Right.
That was the third thing that I said.
And that goes back to the topic, screw ups are your best friend.
Right.
Because you're providing an opportunity to learn from your screw up. And if all you're doing is just justifying, well, this is why it happened. What did you learn so that it doesn't happen again? That needs to be part of it. I mean, of your letter, and that needs to be part of any screw up, whether you have to write a letter about it or not, is how do I make sure this doesn't happen? What did I learn from this experience? Or it's going to happen again and again and again.
And just as a side note, I do that going to like fireground stuff. I do have a little journal, I guess I would call it, that I write different things on the fireground every time I screw something up, which pretty much every fire that I've been on. And it's funny to go back and revisit those and see me rewriting the same thing over and over again. You know what I'm saying? So it's a constant reminder, which I think I've discussed it before, but it's like, slow down, I've written that so many times. I don't think I have to write it anymore because I'm more cautious now. But even to myself, something that I'm reading myself and written for myself, I'll do that as a reminder. And I'm a lot more honest with myself because nobody's reading it. So the honesty of it is I'll put it out there and then write, you need to slow down, or don't do this again, or don't do that again. So that's something that people can use as just a little guidance even for themselves. Your own apology letter to yourself, like, hey, you screwed this up. Don't do that again.
And with the idea of, damn it, I've completely lost my train of thought now.
That's it. Somebody else talk.
Phil.
There's some
No. Wait,
Yeah.
I got it.
I knew it would come back.
Got it.
We was letting it circle back around.
So what you don't ever really want to put in a letter that is being that straightforward and saying, I'm accepting responsibility. Don't ever end it with, and I'll make sure that it never happens again. Because number one, that makes it seem like you could have done that previous and you just chose not to. But there's no way that you're ever, if you were late this morning for work, you're going to do everything you can to make sure that it doesn't happen again. To say that it will never happen again,
Right.
That's way too much. I don't think you're not being realistic.
Right. Yeah.
So, but it doesn't have to be a 3-page letter about
1 page.
all the things that led up to your alarm clock not going off. That's just not. I mean, what do you do when you get that letter, Shane?
The long one?
Yeah. I mean, do you look at it, roll your eyes, and put it down and go, I'm going to have to read this later?
You can plead the fifth on this.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Thanks, Hatch. No, I typically go through them. I see a lot of letters that have that when I start down the list, I see a lot of excuses. Like, I was up doing plumbing the night before. I didn't get into bed till midnight. And my kid set my alarm, turned my alarm off. I get it. You're trying to soften the blow a little bit, that there may be some legitimacy that got you there, but
we're all old enough and
it
mature
doesn't really
enough to know
make
that
me.
It's life.
I guess the thing about it, in reality of it, is I have a very set schedule, so it's not like I'm going, oh, that letter's bullshit. I'm going to turn this one up just a little notch.
Right.
I can't do that.
You say something.
Doesn't work like that.
We're all mature enough and all that. Some of the people that are writing the letters are still young.
No. That's what I'm saying is that the people reading these letters at the
Are the mature ones.
Correct.
are the ones that we
supposed to
know. We know
should
that
be.
life exists. We know that you've got 2 and 3 jobs. We did it. We were there. We might still be there, So adding that into your letter is kind of, I've got a newborn baby that I get it. Most of us have
I
been
know.
there.
I think that's unique or not unique, but that's interesting that people have that perspective. I had a gentleman who was AWOL, and his crew was kind of coming to me and like, he's a good guy, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how many bad guys do you think I investigated AWOLs on? I mean, They have babies that are up and stuff like that. None of them, I'm not personally mad at them.
Right.
I get it. Just accept that it happened and you're going to try to make it not happen again. It doesn't make them a terrible employee.
Right.
What were they trying to get you to change how you were going to respond to it? This guy's a good guy, or this girl's a good girl.
And I think they thought that's
lighten up on him a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's what they thought I had like the leniency to do, and I was like, it is what it is.
And then I always want to go back to when you say that. What do I do for the individual that? You know what I mean? Like you create this environment where, well, if I do it to that, then how do I not do it to that?
Right.
Is that what you want me to?
Right. You want to create this slippery slope that I have to go on.
no.
You know what?
Consistency.
It's not like the guys are going like that. AWOL, I'm going to silence that alarm, go back to sleep. I'm not worried about it. That's not what's happening. It's a mistake. I get it.
Yep.
It happens.
I've been AWOL. Have you been AWOL?
No. Well, I have in Roswell, actually.
Okay. I've been AWOL.
Never.
Okay. No, Shane?
No.
It's a funny story. You mean tell you that one?
I would love to hear your AWOL story.
So I'm AWOL in Roswell, and I feel terrible about it. So I'm having to go in and talk to the battalion chief. And I was like, to be honest with you, I'm really probably overtaxed. I'm really, really stretched thin. I probably need to resign. It's not fair to you guys. I mean, I have to investigate these exact same things where I work, and it's not fair to you guys. You know, because I'm working 2 jobs, going to school, blah 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 blah. And the battalion chief goes, "Why don't you quit school?" I was like, wait a minute. The answer is that I need to quit school? I was like, no. I just thought it was funny for him to tell me that.
I woke up late.
You should really think about your priorities.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Education's not where it's at.
He's like, what else would you do? I'm like, I have more skill sets.
I woke up at like 6:53, and this was in the first 2 years of being in the department, and I hopped in my truck and somehow made it to the station, which was a good 25 minutes away. I made it in about 11 minutes. It was a Sunday morning, and I was driving crazy. And got there 11 minutes late, knew I was late, called my lieutenant the moment I woke up and said, I'm going to be late, only to find out that somebody else was also late, and it shut the truck down for the next 4 hours. Mm-hmm. But I still got the AWOL, even because the truck was shut down. It didn't matter.
Yeah. Both of them did.
But I put something in place to make sure that it would not happen again. Learn my lesson, screw ups.
Yeah, like you said, it creates opportunities for personal growth if you let it. But a lot of people, I think, do what we're talking about in the letters. They look for reasons to say, well, I'm justified that this happened. No, just look at yourself and, where can you improve? Where can you get better from? And we don't really do this with successes, although we've talked about it in way earlier podcasts, that we don't look at the fires as often that are successful, of what we could have done better. But it's the same kind of situation here. If you were doing a critique of this situation, you made a mistake, something that went wrong, where's their point to grow and do something differently or get outside your comfort zone? And I think a lot of people just miss those opportunities, and they probably shouldn't.
So what about the best sick leave call-in, whether you've done it or somebody else has done it?
The best sick leave call-in?
Well, the one that was the reason the truck was shut down was because the other person that was supposed to be on the truck with me and the lieutenant, we had a rule, and we still have it, that if you call an hour before your reporting time to say that you're, out, we can't do anything to you. And he called and said, I'm in Las Vegas and I can't get a plane flight. And it was like, what? But he had called before 6, so he didn't get in trouble. Even though he had to wait to get a flight and then arrived I want to say he arrived sometime around noon.
Oh, wow.
The truck was shut down all that time. He didn't get any paperwork, and I got paperwork because I was 11 minutes late and was sitting at the station on a truck that could not run a call because there were only 2 of us on it. So
I don't know if I could top that one. That was pretty good. No.
What do you got, Shane?
I heard one just recently that was pretty in-depth and comical, and it was that my wife must have left some soap in the glass, which caused me to have diarrhea or something.
Wow.
Like that. It was pretty good.
Wow.
You know what? Diarrhea is the universal. I've always said that's the universal.
Get out of
sick
work for you.
It is, because you're not going to necessarily go to the doctor for diarrhea. So I don't have to have a note when I tell you that I've got diarrhea. And everybody, it's universally, we all understand what that's like. But to blame your wife, that's an extra step. All you had to do was say I had diarrhea, but instead there's the
Blame your wife.
it's my
too.
wife's fault.
I think
I got
possibly how
a
I
note
got
from my wife.
So I got two of them. I had somebody put in sick because they were basically on annual leave on vacation in Florida, the beach, and they were supposed to come back, and they called out sick because they said they got burned and they could not put pants on. That's one. He's retired now. He was awesome. You talk about some sick leave call outs that were just unbelievable. And he didn't
good.
word it that eloquently either. I mean, he was like, man, my ass is sunburned. I can't put no pants on, and I'm not. So, for whatever that was, it was.
Were you tanning in the nude? I mean,
Knowing him, probably
You don't
got
wanna go there.
some
He
Speedos.
was wearing the Borat
And then
mankini.
we also had, which I think a lot of people may have went through this in their departments where they put out the importance of mental health and all this stuff. And we actually had one of the lieutenants call out, same thing, 1 hour before shift going, yeah, I'm not coming into work, mental health day. Just got written by HR. HR just put it out saying, mental health is important, all that. He's like, and he directly threw it as a stab
see.
to him and
more of that.
Worked.
Well,
sick leave. But the sunburnt ass was the best one ever.
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I had one that showed up. I was at training. I was the chief of training, and he showed up late for class, and I was at that point very, very strict. That if you were a minute late to class, you went back to your station. You'd have to come back another day.
Very controversial.
You were not going to walk in late to a class because people would walk in late all the time, and they'd be carrying Chick-fil-A bags and
I think you
and
may
shit.
have messed up a promotion or two with that.
Well, I'm not sorry about it.
Sorry,
Anyway,
not sorry.
there's that empathy coming through. But this one guy, he calls and he says he's got a flat tire. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's one of those things that happens. There's nothing you couldn't have called me, an hour before. I get it.
Come on in.
Yeah. When he got to class, I took him to the side on the first break and I said, listen, man, I really hate that you got a flat tire. I want to help you out. Let's go out and we'll get your tire and I'll take it up the street to Firestone. We'll get that, we'll get it patched while you're in class. And you could start seeing the blood just draining from his face,
Gotcha.
I was like, no, come on, let's go. We've got enough time. You give it to me. I'll get it in the car. I'll get it up there. You're in class. No problems. And yeah. So he got written up.
I like that. That's so awesome.
I'm supportive.
Bill's here.
I'm supportive.
Bill has arrived.
Well, but back to our thing. If he just said, you know what? I overslept this night. I mean, that'd been so much easier.
You hear so many horror stories throughout your career of how to protect yourself against either one, being 100% truthful, or where's the loophole, man? Don't say that. Just say this. You don't want to say that. But I just want to be honest. And I'll tell you, I did that. I actually went into work at a part-time employer and I even say it now and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? I call out sick at my job, right? My full-time. And then I'm going to pick up a shift at my part-time place. I can't even begin to explain it. In my head, it made perfect sense. Well, hell,
A little extra money.
I got a bunch of sick leave over there. Why don't I just use that and go to work over here? My paycheck's going to look great. And then I show up to work, and I don't know what it was, but it just hits me, and I'm like, I can't work today. And I called the only time I've ever been late. I call them, hey, I'm on my way in. Forget the sick leave. I sat down in front of my battalion. I said, let me tell you what happened. And this is the honest part of me where I didn't have to say anything, but I just felt compelled to. Listen, I never clocked in, never showed up anything. And he's like, what the hell were you thinking? He's like, I got to go down to chief with this now, which I actually respected the hell out of him for being so honest himself to go, we got to go talk to chief about this. The outcome was fine. It was just one of those, everybody tilt their head sideways, look at Trosh and go,
What are you
fuck
thinking?
were you thinking? I don't know how I justified that in my head, but in my head I justified, well, okay, let's do this. And then I realized this is stupid as hell. And then I went, let me be honest about it.
So that was going to be my next question. So what do you have more respect for? The people that are just right up front and like, I messed that up, I really screwed that up, blah, blah, blah. Or the ones that spend all the time trying to go through all the reasons why and all the extenuating circumstances. I'd rather just tell me.
Yeah.
I have a ton more respect for you just being straightforward,
Just
not wasting
say
my
it.
time. And like, I screwed that up.
Well, the other one, and this might just be my perception, but the way that I take the other one is, I'll go back. So let's go back. When I was 16, I worked at a movie theater. And,
Really?
Yeah. And I was a projectionist, and I also tore tickets at the door. And people would walk in with like bags of food. You know what I mean? They'd have like
Can't do that?
the woman.
Please
would have,
tell me you're not that guy or
he
you
is.
weren't that
Woman-
guy.
oh, yeah.
He's a rules guy.
No, the woman would have like this big bag of, you could just tell it was loaded with all kinds of crap. And then there were the ones that would walk in literally with the styrofoam takeout, thing. And I respected them so much more because it was just kind of a,
You know what I'm doing.
Yep.
I know what I'm
Yep.
doing.
I don't think you're a dumbass, because the other way was you obviously think I'm a dumbass that I don't know that you've got all that food in there. I mean, I don't know. I'd much rather, because it does make me feel like,
You have a little respect for them.
exactly. You think
You're owning it.
You think I'm stupid enough to fall for this?
See, what about looking at it like this? Because this is a crime that I've committed many a times.
Uh-oh.
I'm just trying to keep you from enforcing something you don't want to enforce anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and hide this so you don't have to worry about even going, is that full of candy? Well, yes, it is. I got QT down the street. I just loaded up with $35 worth of candy that will cost me $106 here.
Nope.
So what would you do?
make
Were
sure
you that
you use the
guy?
big
Were you the
person.
guy that would call somebody out if they brought something in?
person.
No, we
Big
never
person.
called anybody out.
I was going to say.
We never called anybody out. But if you were going to talk about who I had respect for, I had respect for the people that just walked in.
Just blatantly, boom.
yeah, because
Come
I
in with a
mean, you're
pizza
not
box.
you're not treating
Can't bring that in
you're
here.
not treating me like I'm an idiot. The other one, you're treating me like I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I'm definitely good with the honestly
I'm not
just
talking
lay
about
it
the
out
people
there.
that have got like a box of Raisinets in their coat pocket.
Right.
I'm talking about somebody who is, walks in with 5 kids and they've got that bag that they don't normally carry. The woman doesn't normally, you can tell.
It's the one they take to the beach. They put all the toys.
Exactly.
All the kids' pockets are
And
thrashing
it's
of
just,
candy.
and there's a sleeve of Dixie cups, out the top of it and shit like that.
Every time she moves, it crinkles.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's just be honest. I'd
I
much
kind
rather
of
you
respect
just-
both, though, because sometimes some of the stories are just so awesome.
But
That I don't want to lose out on those great stories by saying, look, just come to me and say, I got candy in my bag. Sometimes there's just these
wanna hear the fun
fantastic
story.
stories that I don't want to,
But it was like when we were in class one time and, this kid kind of gets called out about it and he immediately attacks right back. And I was like, sometimes, dude, you just got to own it. Just own it. They'll have so much more respect for you.
Y'all had a class like that?
You were in it too.
Was I late? Was I the one?
No. It was one individual kind of got called out, I think because the instructor said something to him or whatever. And he jumped back on that instructor. And we were like, wow,
I'm drawing a blank.
that was brutal.
I'll have to-
and I was like,
Y'all
sometimes,
have to
dude, when you make a
remind me.
mistake, you just got to own it and just let it go.
What a unique time, though, right now, where we have created this environment in the fire service where you come to work sick. We're talking about the people,
Oh, yeah.
but in reality, we've all been told, just show up sick. We'll work it out.
No, it's been
know,
showing
yeah.
up.
And
Coming,
now all
coming
of
to
a
work
sudden-
sick was actually
Yeah, it's like a badge of honor.
well, it was part of your work ethic.
It's who
Yeah,
I-
yeah.
Yeah, we'll
you're
let you go
right.
get in
And
the
now-
bed, just stay
Yeah.
here.
And now, how
It's flipped.
Yeah,
now
like-
you show up sick and you're. we're
Did
looking
you
at
just
like a
sneeze?
terrorist.
What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Right. It's so.
Did you touch the doorknob? You touched the doorknob.
Did you lick the doorknob?
It's just so.
Since Bill has his rules
Flipped
of
on
letter
us.
writing, I have my rules in class where it's like, look, you're allowed 2 sneezes, 2 coughs, unlimited farts. That's the rule.
You only get 2 sneezes.
COVID, 2 sneezes, 2 farts, and 2 sneezes, 2 coughs, and unlimited farts. They haven't proven that you can get COVID through a fart.
I want to make sure that you understand.
You could do the fart.
I want to make sure that you understand what you've just done to every listener who ever will be in a class of yours.
Yeah. You're wearing a face mask.
Oh, they're going to
And a
sneeze
diaper
and
now.
cough. They're going to sneeze
Unlimited
and cough.
farts, okay. Everybody
Game
wears
on.
diapers and face masks.
All right. Well,
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 Combustible is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Amazon, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts. Subscribe to Combustible to make sure you don't miss out on an episode. Follow us on Facebook so we know how many of you listeners there are out there. And you can check us out online at combustiblethepodcast.com. As always, we would like to thank the Golden Dogs and True North Records for letting us use their song Saints at the Gates for our theme music. You can find the Golden Dogs music on any streaming platform. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you later.